The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Krisha and I'll be walking you through tips and tricks today. We're lucky enough today to have Avplan founder and CEO Bevan Anderson on board with us as well, and he'll be here to answer your questions. Today we're going to keep you on mute because we have an expected 100 people coming in. So rather than speaking your questions, we're going to invite you to write your questions in the question box, which you'll find on your control panel. So you'll have an option there for your questions. I see Peter May has said hello already. Hi there, Peter. Go ahead and write your questions in the box and Bevan will attend to them as we go, and I'll break between each subject to allow you to ask specific questions pertaining to that subject if you'd like to. So once again, good afternoon. Welcome to our webinar on tips and tricks. I'm going to split this webinar into 4 different sections. Firstly, I'm going to show you some en route tips and tricks on the map, which is why I've got full map open at the moment. Now, you probably all know that we can toggle between full map and map and plan by using this little button hamburger up here. But for the purposes of en route, I'm just going to keep us on full map for the moment. Then we're going to drill down into some planning tips and tricks, followed by terminal and some tips and tricks there, and text, the text pane down here. And I'm going to be walking in some weather information as we go. So let's get started. Now, firstly, I'm assuming you all know this, as you're probably all relatively advanced users, but everything pertaining to the map, everything you take on and everything you take off the map will be activated here in the top icon. So this is where we switch on all our features like runway center lines, airport glide range, etc. So if you find you've got something missing off your map that you want, or you've got something extra on your map that you don't want, first place to go here. Now, as you can see, I don't have everything switched on because it tends to clutter the map up a little too much if you have everything. We've got certain things that are great for students, certain things that are great for helicopter pilots, so on and so forth. I'm just going to keep on minimum overlays today, and we will be speaking later about some of these overlays here. The very first thing I like to say when talking about the map is that we have different ways of interacting with the map. If you want to find something pertaining to the airspace, for instance, double tap on the airspace here, and that'll give you your airspace information. In Avplan, anything that has an arrow means we have a second layer of menu. So if you want to find out specifically about Richmond, tap on that. Oh, sorry, that will highlight Richmond and also give you all the details in the box here. Ditto the second layer of Richmond and the third. And to get rid of that box, simply tap on the map again and it'll go away. The second way of interacting with the map is to tap near a place that you're interested in adding to your map, or anywhere on the map you tap, you will get this little nearest items box, and this will give you a bunch of information about everything that's nearby. And you can sort this by toggling along the top here to just look for airports or just look for navaids. If you're using navaids, you want to find your NDB, if you've still got an ADF in your aircraft, you can search by navaids here, or waypoints, so on and so forth. By tapping on this box, you then get a choice as to whether to add that airport to your flight plan, or to find out more information about that airport, simply press on it, and underneath we have a second box called Waypoint Details, and this will tell you everything you could possibly want to know about your specific airport. As you can see, I've got Sydney here with its elevation of 21 feet, and it's lat and long, BOD, EOD. Here's the METAR, which we'll be talking about later, and pressing on that will give you further METAR information, including your plain English METAR, which is very handy if you're flying with a passenger who isn't a pilot and you just want to ask them to tell you some details about a particular airport. They can read this out to you in plain English. Going back there, ditto with the TAF. If you press on the TAF, once more you'll get a second layer underneath there, and your plain English is underneath with your validity at the top here. Continuing on this box, You'll also find your comms, your NOTAMs. So once again, we have an arrow so that we know that we have further information on NOTAMs, and you can mark these off as red here as you go by simply pressing on the mark as red button there. Going back now into waypoints, scrolling down, here are your comms. Well, quite a lot because we're in Sydney, I've chosen a, and here are your charts. So anything that's georeferenced, which will have this symbol, which I think looks like a witch, but it actually is a georeference pointing to the runway symbol. If you want to georeference any of your charts, but if you want to lay them over the map, you simply press on the georeference symbol and it will lay that over the top. There, let me go back and do that again, I beg your pardon. Bevan, can you help me out? What am I doing wrong? Why is that not working?
I can't see where you're exactly tapping, but you looks like you're doing the right thing.
Big. It's not overlaying, it always overlays.
Yes, I know. Tap the clear button in the bottom left and then try again.
Will do.
Yeah. Oh, they're a noise abatement procedure, so I don't think it may not be a good one to tap on. So maybe the just the airport diagram.
Your pardon. Let's take a look at the airport diagram, and perhaps I need to be more careful in what I choose. Here we are. There we go. User error. I do apologize. And right here we have the airport diagram. And to pull that off, to clear that off, or to change the opacity, we have a little slide here. It means you can quickly make it go away or just dial it down really slowly. And you can clear it off by pressing this little clear button here in the corner. Excellent. So back to that box that we were talking about before, the waypoint details. This is a gold mine of everything you could possibly need pertaining to your airport. I've chosen a really big airport here, but at the bottom here is also where we'll add our alternates, and we'll be talking about that a bit later. So we'll close those off here. So 3 different ways of interacting with the map: double tap, single tap, and then tap on the next layer of the single tap there. The other thing that you'll see a lot of on our map, if you have them turned on, are our graphical metars. These are here. You switch these on in weather up here. This is the weather button for everything pertaining to an overlay or on the map. So if you want to put any weather on the map, up here you go. And in there we have our metars here. So if you switch those on here, you'll see the graphical metars here, which you'll also see in your flight plan to Shell Harbour, which is the old Wollongong, green. So green means VFR, and blue means marginal VFR. So that's your cloud less than 3,000 feet. Yellow is a cloud 1,000 feet, and red is 500 feet. So we say green and blue VFR, red and yellow IFR. But more than that, we get details about the graphical METAR simply by looking at it. So we can see here, taking a look at Camden, we have the wind direction, which is this little line coming off here, so that we can see we've got a southeasterly wind. And the tip there on the end, that is the wind velocity. I'm going to scroll down to Tasmania, where we're bound to see a little bit more wind, so that we can have a look at one of these in action. Yes, let's have a look at Flinders Island. Reliable Flinders Island always shows us a bit of wind. So we can see here that we have a northwesterly wind, and we have 2 tips, the long tip being 10 knots and the small tip being 5 knots. So if we press on that now and pull up the METAR, here's the METAR. Well, this is exactly what we expected, 290 and 11 knots. So under 15 knots is what we were expecting here. And blue denoting the marginal VFR here. So we've got overcast 29, broken 22. So what we've done there is we've given you a visual representation of the weather. So by glancing across the map merely with your eyes, you can have a little look at the different weather patterns and whatnot by just checking on the graphical METAR. If you want to know anything about a particular METAR, simply tap on it and the METAR box will be in the top there. Also, another very, very nifty feature in our on our map is pinching to see an airport diagram. I just showed you one way of overlaying an airport diagram, but in AvPlan we have many ways of doing different, approaching different things. So second way to have a little look at your airport diagram is to simply pinch in and in and in, and your aerodrome chart will appear. It's very handy if you're landing somewhere unfamiliar. You don't need to make that go away. Just like the overlay, you just pop here to the clear button and away it goes. The other thing I'd like to show you while we're talking about the map is I've already showed you here how you can toggle between the map and the flight plan. So Bevan has designed AvPlan to always have your flight plan on the left and always have your map on the right, just like in the olden days when we do our flight planning and we'd lay our maps out on the table and we'd have our flight plan on the left there. So if you want to hide that flight plan, simply come to the hamburger and switch it off. But recently we've built in a second way. People have said, I'm using a smaller device and I'm finding it hard to see. So we've given you an option down here in settings. If you follow me through to settings and follow me through to user settings and scroll down, we've given you an option here called full screen flight plan. So if you choose to use that, then flight plans has its own pane down here. So now in order to change pages, you simply need to toggle along the bottom here. This is great if you're flying on an iPad mini, as it gives you just a little bit more room, particularly up here for your remarks and whatnot. And to turn that back off, I'm old school. I like to fly the old fashioned way, so I don't fly full screen flight plan. So let's pop that off there. However, I think if I was using an iPad mini, I might use it as it is quite handy. Back up here now, if we want to see our plan, toggle back there again. Okay, I'm going to take that plan away momentarily so I can show you a couple of features that we can switch on and off up here. So the first one that I'd like to show you is runway centerline. So I have that switched on, and this will give you a 5 nautical mile runway centerline here. So these are 5 nautical mile boundaries here. So when you're approaching Wollongong, you'll be able to have a really good idea of what to expect from the runways, all labeled here, and the interwind runway will be green. So if we're flying to Wollongong today, well in advance, we could prepare ourselves for a straight in on 16 there. Obviously double check the weather, don't take that as an absolute given, but use it as a guide. Back up to the top now to have a look at a couple of other features that we can toggle on. Asked a lot. Oh, I can't find the small airports, or I've just downloaded the country airstrip guide and I can't see any of the airports. In order to see the smaller airports, for example, here, Robertson, the unregistered ALAs, you will need to switch your ALAs on here. We've allowed you to turn those off because some pilots don't go to ALAs and they do clutter up the map a little bit. If you don't need them, you can switch them off. The next item I'd like to have a little look at is fuel availability. Again, this isn't something you want to fly necessarily with the feature switched on, but it's something you can switch on just to have a look while you're flying, to have a look at where the different fuel stations are. If you do have to do a diversion, then this allows you to check out which airports in your area have fuel, and in some cases you'll even see the fuel prices there. So for instance, on our planned flight today, which I've just popped in roughly between here and Wollongong, we can see that Camden has fuel there. So if we had to stop, we could go to Camden there and spend $2.32 a litre at Camden. Oops, I beg your pardon. And we can switch that back off, coming up here under fuel availability. Next thing I'd like to show you is our obstacle database. So our obstacle database, now switched on, is tied to our altitude. So I've put 8,000 feet in here. So we're probably not going to see, I hope we're not going to see any obstacles between here and Wollongong at 8,000 feet, but let's have a look and see what we see at 2,000 feet. There, we'll see some obstacles on the database. here, here, etc. here. So it'll give you those obstacle details there. Oops. And you can switch those off here. And ditto, our terrain overlay works in the same sort of way. So we're going to have it all red, and sometimes I'll get a help question. My map's gone all red. You've nearly always turned on the terrain database, which you can switch off up here. And the terrain database is also going to work according to the altitude you have in your plan. So let's change that altitude now and put 4,000 in. And we'll see there that the terrain database shows us that there is no terrain at 4,000. Let's have a little look at 2,000. And there we are. So we have a yellow terrain database here. So I think that's 1,500 feet, and that's 500 feet there. And we'll switch that off. And when we fly and we go into fly mode, this will operate via our GPS. So we'll switch that off there. Marvelous. Excellent. A couple of other little tips and tricks I want to show you up here in the settings box. You can draw on your map here, annotate map. Every once in a while, I'll get a message saying, I've got scribbles all over my map. Somebody has accidentally annotated their map. When you press annotate map, you get this little toolbox up here. And you can use these tools to draw or type on the map there. So if you accidentally have any scribbles on the map, that's because you've activated annotate map. Your map scale also very useful because, of course, Avplan has one seamless mega VFR map now, and so we don't have the little scales in the corner like we used to. So we need to pinch and pull to change our different maps there, and as you see, as I pinch and pull, the scale changes along with it. And to switch that off, we come back up here, and we'll turn off the map scale there. I'm not going to go through all of them because a lot of them are self-explanatory, and we do say anyone who has a chance to fly in the right-hand seat, take Avplan along and have a real play with some of these things and see if you love them or hate. The rocket boxes up here is another because I like them, but they're not for everybody. Yeah. The distance rings some people love. I don't have those on, but if you want to, that's where you turn them on. And the user waypoints, VFR waypoints, airspace and R4 boundaries, they're all very useful to turn on. Your heads-up display, if you don't like it, this is where you turn it off. Personally, I really like it, and I have mine customized very specifically to the things that I like to know about in flight, and you can customize yours by simply tapping on a pane, holding on a pane with your finger until you get this little drop-down menu, which allows you to change your subject matter here, and this works for each pane individually. So go ahead and customize yours. And interestingly, I've also changed my heads-up display color. I like orange as a color, and I find this is easy to read. You can change your heads-up display color, or in fact, many colors, right here in settings by scrolling down, remaining in user settings, and scrolling down towards the bottom, where you see application colors. You click on this second menu here. You see you can change your colors here. So I've changed my heads-up display to be orange. I like my track color to be green and my PID colors to be red, but of course you can change them to any color you like by bringing up this color chart here. That allows you to customize Avplan entirely to your own taste. Let's go back now to the en route page. And we'll take a little look at the lowest safe altitude calculator. So if you're a premium customer, well, all customers will get the lowest safe calculator. And I'll show you that first. By double tapping on your flight track, you will get a 7 nautical mile splay around the point to point. So for each leg, you'll have a different calculation. And if you're a premium customer, you will also have the ability to add that to your flight plan. I'm going to walk you through that now. So what we've done here is we've shown the highest terrain and the highest known obstacle, and they will flash when you pop up the display. And we've calculated your lowest safe. So we've used the calculations as shown in the AIP, which is 1360, I think I'm right, which we add on top of the highest terrain and lowest obstacles plus the 1,000, and then we round up as well, so we give you a little bit of a margin there. If you want to accept that, you press accept here, and that will now pop your user lowest safe. So that will overwrite what was in the box, which was a grid lowest safe. And a grid lowest safe is always denoted by having brackets around it. Now we've overridden that grid lowest safe with a user lowest safe that we've taken from that lowest safe calculator. And that's a premium feature. Second little tip and trick on the lowest safe calculator here is you can change display by going to setup here. This gives you a whole range of different displays according to your NavAid. So I've just chosen there, I chose NavAid Direct Reckoning, changes your display there to a cone shape. And obviously that will change what's going on in here too. I'm going to go back to cancel that out. So your lowest safe calculator there, just remember, double tap on the line and boom. To cancel that, you simply press the cancel button there. Another really handy feature that we have on our map that not everybody knows about is the ruler. To access the ruler, simply place 2 fingers firmly on the map and the ruler will appear. And to move the ruler around, just take your fingers and drag it. As you can see there, you have your bearing and your distance on the ruler. Absolutely great for students who have to measure things. So to make the ruler go away, simply pinch the map and away it will go there. Okay, that concludes our first section on the en route page and all the little tips and tricks that we have pertaining to this page. Next, we're going to take a look at the terminal page and some of the tips and tricks that we can discover there. And following that, we'll have a look at the planning pane. So follow me now to the terminal page and click on it here. There are 2 ways you can access the terminal page. You can simply go to terminal down here, or you can press, if you want to change the terminal page to Bankstown, you can press on Bankstown and it will flip it over to Bankstown for you. You can also access all of the airports up here in the little book and you can search for them here. You don't have to know the ident, you can search for an airport knowing its name or partial name, and that will pull an airport out here. So when you think terminal, think airport and everything pertaining to an airport. So it's in here, we can add our delay, and I haven't really got a very long flight plan. So when we build a flight plan, we'll come here and we'll add our delay and we can write here our remarks. But this is our absolute gold mine for everything we want to know about the airport in great detail. So whilst I showed you that first way of accessing the airports by tapping on the box, this is the way, this is the button that you need to go if you want really in-depth information about your airport, including fabulous things such as a satellite image. Really handy if you're going somewhere and you've never been there before. Detailed wind information here, winds aloft information. Again, your NOTAMs, your MET and your comms as you had before, but also FBO information here, which is interactive, crowdsourced fuel information there. You can add by pressing the plus. You see here that we've got MoGas now at Bankstown. So all your FBO information is in there and your GPS RAIN, of course. And if you are a member, a subscriber to our AOPA Airfield Directory, that gets its own little tab right at the end. And the AOPA Airfield Directory gives you extra information about the airport and everything around the airport as well. You can send us updated information about that by tapping this little button here. So the terminal is an absolute wealth of information, as I said, regarding your airport. And it's also where we store our charts. And as I said to you before, there are several ways of doing one thing in AvPlan. We've allowed you to choose your own favorite way. And I was stuck in the old fashioned way of swiping for charts until I recently realized you can also place 3 fingers on the terminal page to bring up your thumbnails, which is really handy if you've got a massively long, big airport with squillions of charts. You can simply scroll through those thumbnails with the finger and pick the one you like. So let's say, for instance, we're going to do RNAV Zulu on 11 Centre at Bankstown. Press that there with our finger and it opens that page automatically, no scrolling necessary. You can see here too that this chart is geo-referenced, and we can lay that chart over the map using this method here. I've showed you one way, now I'll show you the second by simply pressing on this little icon here and scrolling down to show chart on map. We show chart on map. Now we've got Bankstown's chart right on the map, and that's georeferenced. And this is really handy because everything's overlaid across it. So you can put your rain radar overlay on. We've got some rain in Sydney, so let's have a little look and see if we've got some weather there. So you can put that over the top. So it gives you a really good idea of what's going on when and you can plan your approach accordingly. And to make that go away, let me just turn the radar off first. And then we can come down here and clear the map. Or we can change the opacity also, so we can quickly slip it away here, or we can dial it up and dial it down by using that little slider there. So back to terminal. You can also print your terminal pages here and draw on your map also. So you've got some drawing options underneath. You can annotate. You can print down here too. And once you click your annotate button, you get the same little toolbox as I showed you before on the map. It's just this pertains now to the chart. And to make that go away, simply annotate off. There, you've also got a stopwatch up here, which by pressing sets the timer there. Okay, so as I said before, if you want to know anything about your airport, any airport in your flight plan, you simply tap on it here, or you can go search for an airport up here in the little book section there. And that concludes the second section on terminal. Now let's have a little look at flight planning. As you can see, I've put a really basic VFR plan in here. I want to take more of a little look at the NavLog. As I keep saying, there are many different ways that you can do things in NavPlan, and flight planning is no different. So you can set up a flight plan by pressing this plus button here, which will allow you to type in your ident. You can also do your alternate here and your direct to here, or alternatively, if you know where you're going, you can type it in here and here, just in the little green bar. And this is a good time for me to tell you that everything in AvPlan that's green is customizable, which means you can always click on it. You can always make a change to it. So we've got Bankstown, the former Wollongong, which is now called Shellharbour. But if I wanted to put a further point in there, let's say we want to go to Moruya, I can simply type Moruya in here. And whatever happens in your NavLog will be reflected in your flight plan, and conversely, whatever happens in your flight plan will be reflected on your NavLog. So let's take a little look now at how we can make an amendment on the map that will reflect over here in the log. And one of the easiest ways to do that is simply by rubber banding. So as you can see, my plan track from Bankstown to Shellharbour is going to take me right through this restricted area here. If we want to know what that is, we double tap on it, and I can see that that restricted area there is Holdsworthy. Part of it's deactive, part of it's active. It's bright red. We want to stay away from it, red meaning bad. So let's divert around Holdsworthy by picking up the line with our finger. Just place your finger upon the flight track there, and you will have a blue circle around it, and drag it to the place you want to go. So I want to go to Camden. It's going to say Camden's the nearest. You want to go to Camden, but it'll also give you options of other things that are nearby. So if you want to go to the Oaks, that's there. Simply tap the plus. And as you can see now, that's added Camden into our flight plan there. So rubber banding is one way, tapping on an airport that you want to go to and adding it is another, writing in here is a third, adding the plus button is a fourth. And you can add and subtract legs by holding on the airport that you want to add or subtract from or next to, and you'll get this drop down box here too. So you can insert a leg before Camden this way. You can pass a beam Camden if you want to by pressing the pass a beam button here. That will take you back through our controlled airspace, so we don't want to do that. Let's drag back to Camden. I was just illustrating to you the pass a beam there. So we take that out by pressing delete there. Okay, let's go back to Camden. There. Instead, we could pass a beam Wilton by adding Wilton to our plan. Wilton is a drop zone that we certainly don't want to fly into. So let's add Wilton to our plan. There's Wilton in our plan. And now let's say we want to fly a beam that. Pass a beam. And now we're going to pass a beam Wilton, and we're not going to fly into it, which is great because I've had an instructor who's tried to push me into Wilton on flight reviews more than once to make sure that I'm paying attention to the fact that it's a danger area. So this will prevent us from flying into that danger area by allowing us to pass a beam. So now we've gone Bankstown, Camden, passing a beam Wilton. Let's decide to land at the old Wollongong. So one way we can choose to land is by pressing on Wollongong there and press land here. And then what will happen is we'll get a second stage plan here. So now we have 2 stages of plan. So what I like to do with flight planning is I like to refer to this planning button here, which gives us a workflow for flight planning in the manner of an old-fashioned checklist. So I often now, if I've set my flight plan up, I take a little look and walk down this to make sure I don't forget anything. So you can bring in, our premium customers can bring in a previously filed flight plan here, if they want to, by tapping on that arrow. And we also have this inbuilt optimized altitude section where you can, where the information from the aircraft that you've input, in my case, it's a Cirrus SR22 Gen 3, has been calculated here to let us know how long, how much fuel and how much money we're going to spend for each leg. So it's taken a little look at our trip between here and Wollongong, and again our second stage, which will be down underneath. Stage 2, scroll down for stage 2, which is Shoalhaven to Shellharbour to Maruya even there. So stage 2 and stage 1. So let's choose now, hemispherically correct is green. Let's choose 3,000 feet, 3,500, and that will be populated over here in our flight plan. Now, if we want to make any changes to that, we can simply tap on the flight plan and make the change. And it will autofill all the way down to the bottom there. And if you don't want it to autofill, toggle over to Fly. And Fly will allow you to simply fill the one area in particular and will not autofill the rest of it. So if you don't want an autofill option, toggle over to Fly. Back to plan if you do, and we'll stay in plan until we're ready to go flying. And we'll walk through our flight plan, show you some tips and tricks here. Aircraft loading, weight and balance, fuel planning, so simple, not much to tell you at all. We've just made this so easy for you. Once you set up your aircraft in the aircraft type database, you'll have the envelope and you'll have your takeoff weight and your landing weight, excuse me, there and here. If you don't have these, this means you've incorrectly set up your aircraft. You can make an amendment to your aircraft by coming here to the top, clicking on this button. It allows you to make some changes there to your load units, and it will bring you through to set up if you want to set up your weight and balance there. So a lot of people have their POHs in pounds, so you can pop it over to pounds if you want to, and then flip it back to kilos to convert if that's what you like to do. There, you can, if you make an amendment to your basic empty weight or empty arm, you can make a quick change in here. So giving you that little icon at the top there to make your changes. And as I said, it's very simple. Everything that's green is customizable. So let's go ahead and fill it up, and I'll show you a passenger manifest. So let's put me, my pretend weight in there. Suitcases here. So I'm going to put one suitcase in here and some de-ice fluid. Now, let's say I've forgotten that I can only carry 36 kilos of de-ice fluid and I want to try and put in 40. This is what's going to happen. So if you go outside the envelope, you're going to get red up here. If you go outside the loading, you're going to get red here. The minute you see red, you know red is bad. And so let's amend that to a more sensible 35 kilos. Massive tank here. Let's put a load of fuel in our Cirrus, and then we will see our 0 fuel weight here as well. So it's as simple as that. You really can't go wrong. The only things you really need to do is load it up, add any extras. So we've got 2 people on board. So let's tell Avplan we've got 2 people on board. And now let's have a little look at the manifest. So the manifest here is this blue hyperlink. Pop on that. And this allows you to customize. So I'm going to put me specifically in. And this is great if you fly angel flights and you need to keep a manifest. I'll show you how to access that in a minute. So back, and let's go to the rear passenger, and we'll put Bevan in there. 95. I don't know if I'm flattering you or whether I'm being insulting there, Bevan, with your imaginary weight. Bevan's in there.
That was my pre-ISO weight. My post-ISO weight actually quite a lot less, to be honest. You know,
yeah, I really have no idea. I still work in stones. I have no idea what a kilos are like for weight. So forgive me. And we'll put suitcase in here in the back, and the 30 kilos that I lug around with me whenever I go anywhere. And back to. Now we can see that these areas have been populated. And if we want to know more about those areas, we simply tap on the line here. And we can add baggage too to that by pressing on the line there. And it turns it into baggage. Rear passenger here, that's Bevan. And the suitcase is here too. We can call that a bag by pressing on it. Now we know it's a bag and not a person. So toggle amongst those things there to make changes. The only other thing I need to show you over here on the planning page, as I said before, green, customizable. We're taxiing out of Bankstown. So let's put in a little taxi fuel there, because it's a relatively large, oh, maybe not 6, maybe not 50 litres, but perhaps 5 there. It's a relatively large. So any changes that we make here will of course be reflected here. Now, if you want to take a little look at that manifest, up here to planning and down here to your load sheet. So we've got a two-stage plan. So we've got a 2-stage load sheet. Sorry, I forgot to show you. To access that, you simply scroll. Stage 1 is here, and there's our manifest. So if you do get ramp checked by CASA or the CAA if you're in New Zealand, this is the page you'll need to show them, or you'll want to show them. And this is your manifest and your date in the top corner here, your name, your aircraft type, and all your fuel calculations. So it's a really handy page to have. You can print that out if you want to, over in the print section there. To go to see stage 2 there, well, obviously the fuel calculations will be different, having taken into account your fuel burn. So back to weight and balance. To see that second stage, simply scroll with your finger there. And of course you can send and share your weight and balance fuel calculations by tapping on this icon here and send it to another person's app, print, email up here. So wherever you see this symbol, it means you can send something, and we'll be talking about that in a minute when we go back over to the nav log. Just go back to planning. Here are your PRDs for your route. Here we go. So even though we've had a look at those, we do give them to you as a list as well. And once again, if you want to know anything about them, if you want to see where they are on the map, tap the eye and it will show you directly where that PRD is on the map there. And of course, you can always double tap on it for more information there. Okay, let's go back to that planning pane now. And I'll talk to you about our amazingly exciting feature that's relatively new called flight status. So after you've filed your flight plan, which we will do after we've talked about the status, AvPlan will continue looking for amendments in the background. So if there's a speci, if there's an amended area forecast, TAF, whatever, NOTAM, it'll pop up here. You'll get a little number 1, you'll get a little number 1 down here. And when you click on flight status, your information will be here in a message, and we'll keep that for 8 hours for you. So, and then it'll just disappear after that, which is why there are no messages there at the moment. Okay, user waypoints. Let's take a little walk now back to the en route page, and we'll make a user waypoint, and I'll show you some tips and tricks there too. All righty, so let's say, for example, we want to go and visit a friend who's just living north of Wollongong there in the waypoints. And I've got those turned on because I've got user waypoints turned on here. We're gonna have a look at some of the waypoints that we've made, or I can choose a different area. Let's have a look at Lake Cordeaux here. Make a user waypoint there instead. So let's pop our finger now on Lake Cordo. So we approximately know where we want our waypoint to be. So let's add a user waypoint by pressing this button here. And it's added a user waypoint there. Now it thinks we want to do it by coming back on our way back, and we can change that by editing our map here, but I'll go back to that in a minute. Firstly, let's talk about naming and editing our waypoint. So simply press on the waypoint and you'll get your waypoint details box here. Let's go over here into the corner to the edit button. And this is where we get all our waypoint information. So if we want to change the name, we're going to call it Lake C. There, Lake C, we've called it. Now we can, if we know specifically where we want to go, we can search by a street address or a known location or a magnetic bearing, distance or coordinates. And also we can get a little look at this Google. You can see here I've landed us right in the middle of the mountains. So we pinch out a bit. I can pick this up with my finger and move it. So let's say we're in a seaplane. I can land us, boom, right there on the lake. And it's moved us now to the lake there, whereas before it was there. So you can drag your little Google icon around to make sure that you're in the exact spot if you're not using a specific street address or lat long there. So now we've made our waypoint and we've called it Lake C. Let's move that waypoint so that it's that we visit Lake C on our way to Shell Harbour rather than on our way back by coming down here to our magic edit button in the bottom. Clicking on this button will allow a lot more functionality for our map. We'll have a lot more editable boxes or panes here. As I said, anything green. So you can change your winds if you don't like your winds. You can change your TAS there if you want to. But also these little lines here allow you to pick up the map, the section of the map, flight plan with your fingers, and move it. So let's pull that now all the way up here so that we go Lake C before Shell Harbour. And then when we go off edit, that will amend it here in on our map. So now we're going Camden, fly a beam Wilton, Lake C to visit our friends at the beautiful lake, then Shell, going to land at Shell, take off again and head to Merimbula. So that's how you make a user waypoint. That waypoint now will be in your user waypoint directory right here. And if we click on that, we'll see Lake right down there at the bottom. Lake, you can see I'm a sloppy housekeeper with my database directory here. Our finger along unwanted waypoints and deleting them there. Or of course, all your waypoints, send them to someone else and email them there. So that will allow you to share the waypoints that you've made. And these waypoints will stay here now in your directory until you decide to delete them. Okay, so we've had a look at our user waypoints. Here's our domestic flight plan form that we can print out if we want to. And just only one tip or trick that I want to show you with this is that up here we have a little settings icon again that allows you to change the way that you see your flight plan. So you can change it so that you've got stage headings, stage 1, stage 2 there, and stage totals. Really handy if you're flying 2 stages. I like double spaced because I'm getting old and getting blind, but if you're young and you've got great eyesight, you can bring it in to be single spaced there. And you can have a play along with some of those customization features by tapping on that button here. Back to planning. And the other thing that I think is absolutely marvelous and one of my favorite features is the special route briefing. So this is a briefing that's just pertaining to your route. So back in the old days, you had to get, especially if you're in Sydney, because if you're in Sydney, you're between areas 20 and 21. It's not long before you leave Sydney and you have to get 21's weather as well. So it used to be onerous having to get 20, 21, print it all out, carry all this paper, kill all these trees. Now you don't have to. We've given you a special briefing here that will just give you the things that you need for this flight plan here. So scrolling down, we've got the weather, then we've got our GPS rain information, our NOTAM information there. Scrolling down, quite a lot. Keep going to the bottom. There's more down at the bottom. Your gas information is what I wanted to show you. Right down here at the bottom, you've got all your graphical weather information there too. So really, this is everything you need for your plan. And you can print this out over here in printing. Here. So if you go to print send, you can toggle off area 20 and area 21 and toggle on your special briefing and just print that one thing there. Ditto your charts and everything in print. You can toggle on, toggle off. You can also print a very useful blank plan here, which is great if you're a paper lover. All of that is done here. So before we file our SAR time and or plan, I'm just going to go back to the map. And we're just going to, I'm just going to show you how to do a few more little things before we do our flight plan. So I just wanted to show you that you can also, for instance, because we've got our VFR waypoints in, which we turned on in settings, we can now access this VFR lane that goes through Nowra by simply dragging and dropping. So let's go Kiama, and let's go waypoints. And here's Kiama. Pop that in. It's going to make our transit through Nowra really simple by just popping the waypoints in here, so that when we file our flight plan, ATC will know we're planning to transit this VFR lane there. Excellent. Okay, now let's just show you how to put a delay in. I'm just picking a place for the delay. Okay, let's delay at Camden. So let's say we're going to Camden and we're going to do a little bit of aerial work. Back here and go to leg details. And here is where we add our, pop that in there. We can also put our actual fuel on board here, and we can also make some notes if we want to. Toilets in Camden and miles A is now reflected over here in our flight plan. So when we add our ETD, it's going to factor in that delay in the top calculations, bottom calculations. So let's have a look now at our ETD. So it's currently 0249 UTC. So let's say we want to leave in an hour, 033, pop that in. And now all our calculations are populated all the way down there until we get to Shell. So we're going to land at Shell there, and we're going to go and say hello to some friends. So let's say we'll be an hour. We'll pop in our second ETD there, 0520 there, and that will populate our second field there. Let me just check my notes and make sure I haven't missed anything before we go and file a flight plan. No. I think that's everything I needed to show you. Let's go ahead now and file that flight plan. Let's go to planning. So I've done a VFR flight plan here. Bevan discusses IFR flight planning and tips and tricks in his advanced webinar, which I'm sure some of you have already seen. And if you haven't, it's now available on our YouTube channel, which I'll tell you about afterwards. I'm not going to drill down into too much IFR stuff, as I'm not an IFR pilot myself. So I'm going to keep my flight plan in VFR, which is noted here, VFR. But if I were to do an IFR flight plan, I could use this route button here and get all different IFR routes and whatnot, which you probably already know if you fly IFR. Let's go over now, and we can submit just a SAR time. We're going through some controlled airspace there. We're transiting Nowra, so let's do the right thing, the appropriate thing, and file a flight plan. So we've got loads of interactivity now. Over the years, we've really modified this flight plan form, and you can change and amend anything. No need to ever go to NAICS website. You can simply do it all here. Once you've set it up with your NAICS password in user settings, which I'm sure you've all done when you were setting up, everything is populated. So we've drawn all the information out about your aircraft. We've drawn all the information about your route, your altitude, and everything. So you just basically, if you've done everything right, all you need to do is scroll down and just cross-check it all. So here's our aircraft. Here's the Cirrus, the SR-22 GTS G3. and its call sign, and so on and so forth. If we want to change our wake turbulence categories, our navs and our comms, if we've added something, this is where we do it here. Say, for instance, we've added a new piece of equipment. Right here is where we change it. We had a paint job, we can change our colour here, so on and so forth. We know we're going from Bankstown, and we know we've got 2 people on board because we said that in our planning pane over here when we did weight and balance. We've given it an ETD, and we know we're looking at stage 1 and that we're not yet filed because it says so up here in the top. So here's what we expect. Camden, we're going to be a beam, Wilton, and it's converted Lake C back into lat and long because Lake C will mean nothing to ATC. So it's taken it back to its lat and long there. We've given it an initial altitude, and if we want to change that initial altitude, which we should, because we'll be busting airspace if we don't, we can tap on it here and change it by pressing here. And boom, it's done that now for us. And when we get to shell, we might want to be at 3. So we can, as I said before, manually change that because it auto-populated, or do it in fly where it doesn't auto-populate. Okay, so there's our initial TAS and so on and so forth. We've got our en route time. Here's our air work that we're doing at Camden and our delay for that air work there. If we want to make any changes to that, we can tap on it and we get other changes we can make there. So every time, as I told you, every time we see an arrow, there's another layer behind. If you do have any special handling, here is where you put that in. So all we need to do, I haven't shown you alternates, but if we've done an alternate, that alternate would be in here. All we need to do is give it a SAR time. Now, you can't put in a SAR time for an IFR flight, but we're using a VFR flight today. So let's make a suggestion. So Avplan knows we're landing at 4:20 UTC. So it's suggested quite sensibly 5:20 UTC. If we want to see that in local, because we're working in local and we're thinking we know what time we're going to land at the gong locally, you can flick it over to local, and that's 3:20. You think, yep, 3:20 is when I said I was going to meet my friends in Wollongong. So pop that in there by pressing on it, and it converts it back to UTC for you because ATC isn't interested in local time, obviously. And your second stage, you can scroll through up here. I'm just going to submit for the first stage. Just going to submit here by using no send. So if you click on no send here, this will still allow you to submit your flight plan. It'll only send it to the first stage of air traffic control. It won't go on from there. They'll see no send and know that we're just practicing. So let's do that now and submit. Here's my no send flight plan submitting. Oh, what have I done there? Put the wrong SAR time in. I've never had an error with this before. What did I do wrong? 15th of May, UTC, departure time. Bevan, can you see what I did wrong there, please?
Just scroll up to your departure time for stage 2.
Yeah, stage 2.
15:20. 15:20. So it's exactly the same as your departure time for stage 2.
Oh, aren't I?
That's right.
Here we go. Made an amendment. Try again. There we are. And now we know it's a no send because it doesn't have our call sign there. It has a no send instead. And scrolling down, here's all the information that we would expect to see. So we can cross-reference that, double check that it's all right. Also, Air Services will send us, NAICS will send us an email, which we'll get in a minute. And Avplan will send you an alarm when it's time to cancel your SAR time. Is it 10 minutes, Bevan?
Yep, so you get a calendar invite that goes off 10 minutes prior to your SAR time expiring, and we include the phone number to ring as well, because I'm always forgetting to do that.
We've all done it more than once. Okay, now, and if we want to go back to, and if we want to make an amendment, we simply make an amendment and then press submit again, and that will give you an amended. So for instance, if you do want to change something, you simply make a change, press submit, and it will bring you back an amended flight plan notice there. You can also toggle between stage 1 and stage 2 here. And when it is filed, you'll have a green filed OK. You won't get that with a no send. But if you file it properly, it'll let you know up here whether it's been filed properly or not. So look for the green and you know you're good to go. Also here you can delete your plan here. You can amend your SAR times here rather. You get your little SAR time database here. You can amend these in app by pressing change via app. No need to call Sensar. You can do it right there in app. There. So that's basically everything we need to know about flight planning, tips and tricks. Oh, except that you can log your flights there. If you signed up to Log10 Pro, you can send that over. And also some other sending options down here. You can name your flight plan, which is a great way of remembering your flight. So I'm going to call this demo. We've named it now. And then we can send demo, our flight plan, to, can submit it here too, but we can email it to ourselves. We can airdrop it to people nearby. We can send it to other AvPlan users. We've also got some very nifty things here. You can send to your handheld Garmin by using an FPL export there. And you can tweet. And you could send, to. So basically everything that you want to do pertaining to sending is down here in the show or demonstrate.
There's been quite a few questions, but I've been busy typing them into various people. So, and there was a couple of about things that came up, but we covered those around user waypoints and stuff. So I think you're good to continue.
Okay, nothing that you need me to demonstrate live. Then let's go and just have a little look at the text box. This is when I get feedback about the webinars. The text box is the one that people often say they know the least. So a couple of really important things to know about this text box is that you can bring in your own POH. And here's one I did earlier with the Cirrus. And to do that, you simply email your POH to yourself. Open that up on your iPad using your Mail app, and you'll get an option to open in AvPlan. Click on that option and that will bring it in here to your documentation. Or you can also use your Dropbox. And here's one I didn't do earlier and I've been meaning to do for a while, to link my Dropbox account here. Once you do that, you'll have a folder in your Dropbox saying AvPlan EFB, and everything you put in that folder will appear here. Really handy if you want to bring in your checklists. Or anything pertaining to your aircraft. Also in here is our chart legends, and they're sorted by country and by chart. So if you want to have a look at, say, the legend on the PCA, here it is, that breakdown of where all the areas are right there on the PCA. You want to know what's in area 40, etc. This is where you come and look. And to close that off, we've got a little close button up here. There we are. And back to documentation. Very valuably, here's our AvPlan documentation here. So we keep the quick start guide and the user manual right here. So if you ever need it, if you're in flight, you need to look something up, you've got your user manual and your quick start guide and your tutorials, which will take you over to our website to show you some very basic tutorials that you guys won't need if you're on a tips and tricks webinar, but great if you're coaching somebody new through AvPlan. So further, got a little notepad. You can see some notes there from my previous webinar there, and you can take two approaches to deleting on your notepad. You've got mega delete, or you've got delete just the last thing you wrote by simply, as you can see now, Chatham Isle is starting to disappear because I'm pressing on that, so toggle that there. Okay, so all that I think that's left for me to show you then is, let's just briefly go over the two different kinds of weather that we have in AvPlan. We've got, and we touched on this, the interactive weather, and we did the radar overlay on the map, which sorry, our New Zealand customers don't get, but our Australian customers do. I just wanted to show you a little tip with the weather here. If you want to know about the weather recency, here it is down here, that you can see that this this rain radar is 2 minutes old. If you want to see the legend for the rain, the legend there so that you can take a look at how heavy your rain is. As you can see there, we're between the green and the yellow. I can verify that as I'm sitting right here where you can see my aircraft. This also works with your cloud cover. If you turn your infrared satellite there, and this is 32 minutes old, and by tapping on that, we can see how dense the cloud is there. Also, other animated radar overlays in forecast. And then we've got our static weather overlays too. This is where you turn on your SIGMET, your lighting, pilot reps, and your weather cameras. So if you don't like the weather cameras, this is where you turn them off. I love them, obviously, and we'll show one of those in action in a minute. In fact, let's turn everything on. I'll show you the SIGMET and I'll show you the weather camera. So let's have a look at beautiful New Zealand. Take a look here. There's our weather camera. So by pressing on the camera icon, haven't chosen a particularly good one because I've only got one camera. Let me go back over to Australia now. And I'll choose an airport that has more than one camera. I'll show you how we can toggle between. Let's take a look at Tumut. There we are. Beautiful day in Tumut today. Little lag on the camera box, but we can toggle between the two angles there so that we can see what's going on in the northwest as well as the southwest. If we want to know details about Tumut, over to the details box, and here's our detailed Tumut box with everything that we have in it pertaining to the airports there. Oh, beg your pardon. Accidentally hit the Guardian by mistake. There we are. Okay. Also, let me show you the SIGMET. Here's one I found earlier. Is it still there? Yeah, there we are, out to sea. Your SIGMET. So if your map goes all orange, you know, my map has gone all orange, that's because you've got SIGMETs in the area where you're looking at. These ones are out to sea. So take a look at that SIGMET by pressing on the box here. And you can display it raw or plain English by toggling here. So there's raw, there's plain English, useful once again if you're flying with somebody who doesn't speak aviation acronym and you just want them to read the SIGMET out to you, tap on the SIGMET, pop it into plain English there. Then we have a second layer of weather down here, which is our long range detailed weather planning. I'm not going to go through that because you'll have all used it. It's all pretty obvious. Your flight plan track is here. So to tap on something, to find out more about something, simply tap on it and there's your graphical forecast. And you can toggle that if you're doing some long range planning by having a look at what it's going to be like later here. The only thing I really want to show you in this is that the winds aloft, that's pretty cool. We've teamed up with windy.com to show you winds aloft here. It's really great for weather planning, and you can scroll up and down, in and out here, and that's on a loop. That's a pretty handy one to know. Okay, I'm going to go back to en route now and ask Bevan if there's anything I've missed that he would like me to show, or anything any questioners would want to see. If you have anything you want to see, write in the box. No? Have I covered everything?
No, it's all good. Have we spoken about the NOTAM that we can see, the low jet route?
Oh, no, we haven't spoken about the low jet route. There it is. Here's our low jet route. If we want to know about that, we tap on it, double tap on it. And here's our low jet route here. So we're doing a lot more, we're adding a lot more features to AvPlan as we go. And the low jet is a relatively new one that we like to show you. So there it is. And on little things you might not have known about. Just keeping you abreast really of all the different ways we can do things in AvPlan, because as we build it over the years, we make different ways of doing things. We'd like to make sure you're across them all. So thank you for attending. If there aren't any further questions, then all that's left for me to say is if you ever want to get in touch with Bevan or myself, live ring up the top will bring you directly to one of us. Here we are. And we monitor this. If it's urgent, mark it urgent. If you're in flight and something doesn't work, let us know. Otherwise, we'll get back to you as soon as we can via the live ring. We have recorded some of these webinars, So if you do want to go back over them, the advanced webinar and one of the beginners webinars are on our YouTube, which is YouTube. Just put AvPlan EFB into YouTube, and you will see the webinars there. I don't know if we're going to convert this one or not. That's up to Bevan. But if we do,
this one will be online, within a couple of hours. It takes about to process.
Great. And we are running a further bunch of webinars throughout the month. So if you have any friends who've missed out, do let them know. I'll be popping those up on our website today. And I think all that's left to say is that if you ever want to get in touch with us, you can do it here. You can do it through settings. You can also access our website, which has our contact details on there, our telephone numbers and whatnot. We have an FAQ on our website and a series of top tips, which you may also find very useful, compiled by the lovely Evan, a gift that he left to us before he departed. There's stacks and stacks of information on our website if you want to go and visit. So thank you for your time. Bevan, do you have anything to say?
No, thank you very much. I think Krisha covered everything. There's always a lot more to learn. So yeah, the user manual is always a great place to go. And we're always here to help. So yeah, thanks for being customers and supporters. And if you're not, head to our website, and we hope to see you on board shortly. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a great day. You will speedily